Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Checkmate Champ Life. Today I got something interesting for you guys. The 7 middle game principles every chess player must know. Most chess players lose in the middle game not because they blunder but because they don't understand what the position actually wants. So, today I'm showing you 7 essential middle game principles that will instantly make your planning clearer, your play smoother, and your middle games far more dangerous. So, let's get started. Principle 1: Improve your worst piece. So, look here. In this position, white has a worst piece, which is the knight placed on c3. This knight is not doing much. It can't go to e5, e4 as the pawn is there. It can take the pawn also as it's defended and all. Can go to b5. So, it's a worst piece. It's not doing much over here. It can go to knight to a4, but it can't do much there because who would like to play their knight to side of the board? Everyone likes to keep the knight in the center, right? So look, you can get the knight to center like playing knight to e2, then bishop g5, knight f4, and bring it to the center so the knight becomes active. And one more is also there. This rook a1 is also like rook in the a1 is also quite misplaced. So you can play rook to c1 and get it into a semi-open file. So here the path is knight e2, bishop g3 and knight f4. So this is how to activate your worst piece. So one of the fastest ways to improve any position is find your worst piece, give it a better square. If you don't know what to do, don't look for an attack, don't look for a tactic. Just improve the piece doing nothing. Strong positions don't come from magic moves, they come from small improvements that build up. Remember this key point. Better pieces equals better plans. So I hope you understood how to improve your worst piece. If you have nothing to do, just work on the worst piece in the position which you have. So we'll go to principle 2. The principle 2: prepare before you attack. So here white has a pawn on h4. This is early h4. You know why this fails? Because the king is in the center, it's not castled properly, and it can't in this way because it's already opened up. Like you already pushed the pawn to h4, right? So it can't be castled in this way. So it can't even be castled this way because black can start pushing their flank pawns. You know what the flank pawn means? The flank pawn is like the pawn which is in the end of the board, like flank attack. This is also called as a flank attack. So if opponent is playing the flank pawns, we can attack directly in the center. So if white plays h4, black can play c5 also. And after playing this queen c2, if we triple zero means long castling, they can start playing a5, b5 and start a pawn storm on our king. So playing h4 too early fails. But I'll show you if you play the same h4 after developing the queen and the rooks, like playing queen c2, if he plays something, just imagine, play bishop d3, after he plays something, you can go king e2 and make the king safer and come rook c1 or something and make all pieces ready. Then you can directly go h4 and launch an attack. You can go even like knight h2, then g4. You can start a pawn tornado. So this way is better than going early h4, right? So I hope you got the point. So most attacks fail for one reason. because the pieces weren't ready. Before you attack, first check, are my rooks connected? Is my queen helping? Is my knight in the game? Are my bishops active? If not, slow down, prepare first, then attack. I hope you got the point. Preparation makes the attack unstoppable. So don't rush, prepare, then crush. Remember this key point. So I hope you got this. You need to prepare first before going any like attacks like H4 or something. We'll move on to the next chapter, which is pawn breaks change everything. Here, I'm flipping the board. Sorry, I'm flipping the board. See, from black, I'll show you the pawn breaks. You know what a pawn breaks is? Means like, see, black has c5. This is a pawn break. Like you're breaking the pawn, like you're attacking the center. You're directly striking the center, right? This is called as a pawn break. Even e5 is a pawn break. But e5 doesn't work now. This is called as the correct timing and the wrong timing. If you play e5 directly now, what happens is black can take and you can't take as the knight will lose. Knight will hang. So this is the wrong timing. Playing e5 too early because everything collapses. So you have to play rook e8, then e5. You need to like arrange everything. Rook e8, queen e7, you can go. You can then play c5 and trade off this. Then go bishop d7, rook c8. Then if you go e5, no, that's like too good. See, in the last principle we discussed, right? Prepare everything before you attack. That's the correct timing. If you play rook e8, queen e7, get ready everything, go c5 break first. After he takes, take with the knight, go bishop d7, then play rook c8 and get ready everything. After you get ready, go e5. Boom. It's a crazy center strike. So, a pawn break is the move that changes the entire middle game. It can open a file, activate your rooks, give your knight squares, break the enemy center, and expose the king. So, but it must be timed correctly. E5 too early collapses, right? But the right idea is rook e8, queen e7, and c5, bd7, rook c8. Then e5 works. So it should be timed correctly. A good pawn break is the turning point of the game. So I hope you understood the pawn breaks. We'll move on to the next principle. Principle 4. Principle 4. Create a target first. So this is nothing but you need to first create a target. From white, you need to target the pawns on the queen side. You know what is a queen side and the king side is, right? The queen side is the right hand half of the board and the king side is the right hand side of the board and queen side is the left hand side. So king side pawns are these and queen side pawns are these. So, here in queenside pawns, you need to find backward pawns and weaknesses. Here, you can play rook c1 first. So that he can't play this, and as the c6 pawn gets weakened. So, I'll tell you what a backward pawn is now. A backward pawn is nothing but a pawn which is not protected. For example, I'll show you. See, after he plays b5, this pawn becomes a backward pawn because it's correct, but it's defending two pawns, but it's not getting defended by a pawn. So this is called as a backward pawn. This is a slight weakness opponent can cast. So if you flip board, you play rook c1, attack the file, like you can't play b5 as it weakens the pawn. Even he can't play b6, as we kept the rook, right? We kept the rook, and it's a bit clumsy for black now. So you can take queen b3, a4, a5. These are all exploding ideas. So that this pawn becomes a weakness and it becomes a backward pawn. So I I hope you understood this thing. So you can play queen b3 knight. After replace some rook, you play a4. After rook, play a5. Just give up a pawn, explode it. Then you can go queen b7. There are a lot of ideas. Knight a5. This is now crazy weakness. Can go fall on it. So you can attack nothing, but you need to prepare first. You can attack everything if you prepare. Like see, if you don't prepare, you can attack nothing because the pawns are connected. You can't do much here. You can go queen b3 first, rook c1, then queen b3, put the weaknesses on, attack this pawn. If he defends, rook c1. Anyhow, I'm just changing the move order. You can go knight a5 or a4 a5 direct. There are a lot of variations here to weak the queen side. So a target can be a backward pawn, an isolated pawn, a weak square, or a king with no defenders. You know what an isolated pawn means, right? So I'll tell you if you don't know. See, an isolated pawn is, for example, if my pawn is on d4 and this e3 pawn is not there, just imagine, it's not there. So the pawn on d4 becomes isolated as it's not getting supported by any pawn. See, it's only the pawn which is on the d file, and e and c pawns are not there. So it's not getting defended. That's called as a isolated pawn. So you know what a backward pawn means and what a isolated pawn means. So these are weaknesses and we can target them. So I'll tell you the key line. A target is your anchor. Your attack needs something to hit. So, you understood this principle, right? We'll move on. We'll move on to the fifth principle, which is patterns are greater than calculation. So, actually, this bishop was here. So, we'll move on. So, the principle six, trade pieces, not pawns. So, here patterns win games before calculation does, is the fifth principle. So we'll move on to the sixth principle, which is trade pieces, not pawns, when better. So trading a knight simplifies into advantage. Like if you play knight to e5 and you trade this, it simplifies into advantage, right? As you're getting a bishop for the knight. So it's a good advantage in the end game. And trading pawn reduces winning chances. You know why? If you go right here and play something, you trade this pawn, it reduces winning advantages because this pawn gets isolated. And there is a more chance of getting a draw than a win. So when you have the better position, trade pieces, don't trade pawns. Trading pieces removes counterplay, keeps your advantage simple, and helps you convert. When you're better, simplify the fight, not the pawns. Then you can have a greater chance of winning. Or if you trade pawns, it leads to drawish positions. We'll move on to the last and the but not the least, principle 7. So the principle 7 is activate your king early. So Let's zoom in. Here, in this position, you're almost going into end game, right? You're in the transition phase between the middle game and the end game. So you can here trade a few pieces now. You can go knight e5. Put the knight into the center. Sorry. Put the knight into the center, right? So after that, after he plays something like rook e8, you can play queen d2 or queen e2 is better. Like you're getting more advantage, like more squares to go out. You can play f4 also at any point of time. So here the key point is activate your king early. So you need to get the rooks out first. So after something happens, they both continue on the mouse. Play f4, get king f2, and then anyways you'll get pieces traded, right? So the king, when it marches to the center, it will be useful for you in the king endgame or any piece endgame. But the king, if it's in the center now, it's very useful. As the pieces are traded, it attacks all the pawns and gets tempos. So in many simplified endgame, I mean middle games, your king becomes your strongest piece. Once queens are off and the center is stable, and you have like no opponent has no attack or something to attack your king, so your king becomes your strongest piece. So bring your king in early in these simplified middle games. Get your king out, get f4, king f2, or king f1, f4, anyhow it works. So get it out early. A king on d3 or d6 dominates the board. You know what this means? See, if the king is on d6, if opponent's king, all the pieces are traded off. Just imagine. It's on d3. It's the goat. It's the goat of the board. Can come wherever he wants, or if he has a passed pawn, he can just push it, can support it. Like it's the god of the position. It's the strongest piece in simplified middle games and end games. Or if the white king is on d6, this is also god. It's goated here. You can go like this, and kill all the pawns. So a king on d3 or d6 dominates the board, wins pawn races. Especially it wins pawn races because, you can directly go pushing. There's no one to stop you. The king is on d6. So it wins pawn races and supports your active pieces in simplified endgames. The king is here. Imagine it supports your pieces, which is active in the center, right? So a late king is useless, an early king dominates. Remember this key value in these simplified middle games and end games. So, and those were the 7 middle game principles every player must know. So I hope you enjoyed this because you'll get to know all the things in this video, like how to play the middle games, how to improve your worst pieces, what are pawn breaks, how to strike in the center, and then how to transit, like the transition phase of the middle game to the end game. You'll get to know all this, right? So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.